Good morning, and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm glad you've made the connection and are with us today. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and the goal of our show is to explore a wide range of topics that challenge us to see ourselves, our community, and the world around us in ways that get us thinking, get us imagining, get us working on something, get us connected, perhaps inspired or challenged to do just a little bit more because we made the connection. Well, we are talking about a wonderful topic today, and the show, I want to make sure that everyone knows, is co-produced with Art to Change the World, a wonderful nonprofit, and the director of that nonprofit is Barbara Bridges, and she's my co-host today. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful. You've got a great project that I'm really excited to talk about, the Arts District Palette. Tell me about that.
It's called the Arts District Palette, where neighbors and artists mix. And that name was developed by Leo McDill, who is the chair of the board of Art to Change the World. So this project was created to create community, and I really feel pretty good about it. Do you want me to just give you a quick overview of what it is?
Yes, please do.
Okay. I kept thinking as I was watching the developments grow up here in Northeast Minneapolis, and people were concerned about them and what did all this mean for our neighborhood, that, I believe so fervently that communication is the answer to all things. And I thought, well, we should be communicating with these folks. These are our new neighbors. Mm-hmm. They want to be in Northeast Minneapolis because of the arts district. So
that happens a lot. That happens a lot when you've got, wonderful artists. They come and they build a community. It draws people. It's like,
it does.
And people are then attracted to that community, but then things can change too. So.
Well, I thought if they want to be part of us, let's meet them.
Yeah.
So I got this idea that to approach a developer and that perhaps they would buy works of art from the NEMA artists and the Art to Change the World artists who are all here in Northeast Minneapolis. And that's what happened. We met with Rob Miller, and Kevin Wright introduced us. He's our city councilman to Rob. And we had a meeting, and he said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So we are currently, there are welcome bags. So there are 224 works. When he gets a new person that's going to move into his Huxley apartments, they come in, they get to choose 2 works of art, and then they'll have this welcome swag bag, which we have been talking to all of the service providers and the vendors in the neighborhood, and they're putting coupons in. For instance, Durango Bakery put 1 free churro in there.
I love that it feels like an artist's welcome mat. You're
very tricky, Lori. Very tricky.
that allows people to really feel like they've been welcomed by their artist neighbor. And I have to believe that there's an the reason they may have come because of art, but if they didn't come because of the art, it's good for them to have an introduction that, hey, you've got artist neighbors.
Great point. Yeah, but that's what we hope. That's what we hope for.
And it builds that. I sometimes think that artists don't know what to do when there's an influx of developers coming in. It must create some fear, because I've seen in other communities where artists get displaced. So this is a way for them to feel like I have to assume that they're making an active partnership, that they are trying to make a connection so that all feel included, all feel welcome.
It's a very difficult situation. I mean, I'm from Maine, the East Coast originally, and so a lot of my friends have watched gentrification of their neighborhoods in New York and Boston.
Yeah.
And, you can have some effect over that happening, but generally not a lot. And so it seemed much more sensible. I don't know, maybe I'm just a pragmatist, to start a conversation and be in conversation. You're much more likely to have the opportunity to shape how this transpires. So that's what we're hoping anyway.
And I have to believe that being part of the process, there reduces some of those fears, because you're right. Fear is the biggest thing that I think can get in the way of feeling like you're connected and in community. But if you're invited and you feel like, well, you belong here, You know, you're an artist and you help create this. So how do we enrich that sense of belonging so others can feel that same relationship without you needing to be afraid that you're going to get displaced or this is not going to be a place for you any longer?
Yes, yeah, that's what we're hoping. I mean, so far it's just been joyful meeting neighbors and vendors that I've gone in many times but have never really struck up a conversation. So now I have a reason to strike up a conversation. So it's been wonderful, and we're excited to meet our new neighbors. We're going to have a big pop-up event for that to happen at Sociable Cider Works on August 8th. So everybody should put that on the calendar. The 20 artists that were accepted, 36 applied, by the way, to be in the project. The 20 artists will be there. We're going to have an installation inside, and Allison Price is in charge of that for 2 months inside Sociable Cider Works, and she's going to be talking to us later about that. But there'll be 20 artists, there'll be music, there'll be food, there'll be door prizes, and we're joyful to host all our vendors who have put coupons in the bags, the new neighbors that are in the Hudsley building, and the artists. I mean, this is where we hope that networking and that family idea of us being here together will develop.
Well, I think there's also layers going on. You know, we've all been pinned up for how long, you know, and that sense of isolation. I have to believe that creating this idea and planning it and imagining, you know, a community celebration, you know, where we can come. I mean, there will be social distancing. I'm quite sure. I know that you all are good about that. But there's a deeper celebration, I think, going on as well. That it's not only this is community, but how are we reimagining, you know, the world we're moving into now? And I think this is part of that reimagination of how do we strive to create belonging for all.
Right, exactly. And I would encourage anyone listening to take this as an opportunity. This happened, you know, and out of crisis comes opportunity. So we're not going to do anything about the fact that the pandemic happened, but we can now. So many of our previous ways of doing things are erased. And so this is the opportunity for great change, because people are not protecting their turf. They're not protecting, you know, what they've been doing for the past 20 years, because it's not happening anymore. So it's much easier to move forward with innovative and fresh ideas in a situation like this. So even though this has been terrible for all of us, there's been a dozen working so hard on this project, and several of them have said, and I include myself in this got me through the winter. It did.
Yeah. Well, and it also speaks to how this group was created, Art to Change the World. I mean, that was your vision from the get-go, that art can be a way of road mapping perhaps the future, because it takes that idea, it takes that imagination, it takes that expression. You know, art to create community. Why not? You know, why can't art be a influencing factor and driver to create meaning? And create a new way of looking at things. And we've all had this pause to reflect. You know, will there be actions that can change out of this? This is what I want to keep track of, on how those partnerships develop, how that community develops. What happens if we don't drive artists out, but we make them the welcomers of the community?
Well, and provide financial support. You know, 224 works of art is not a small thing. And now all of that original art will be in these young potential collectors' hands. So, and they're going to understand that when you bring a piece of art into your home or space, the spirit of the artist comes with you. It's very different than buying something online, you know, and until you've experienced that yourself, you're not going to get it.
It's so interesting that you say that. I remember the first piece of art. My family loves art, and we went to, you know, art fairs out in San Francisco, and as a kid went out to Sausalito for a great art fair. And I'll never forget the first art piece that my parents bought for me. And I've loved it over the years, and I, you know, cherish it. But to think now that I've really carried that artist with me, you know, for 50 years. That artist has been a part of our life and is part of my life, and I still cherish it. And I think it when you do especially work with children and give them pieces of art, there's something that they recognize, I think, that's different than an off the shelf, right?
Yeah.
It may be pretty,
Right.
but does it have heart? Does it have an expression? Is it unique? And
Right.
and what makes it unique? And why are you drawn to it? And why do you treasure it? And then it becomes something, ideally you give to your family as something that you pass down, so that artist lives for generations, theoretically.
Well, forever. Yeah.
Well, I love what you're doing, Barb, and the people that you're bringing together. And you've got some guests that we'll highlight. Tell me about our guests that we're going to be bringing in the next segment. So we'll just tease the audience with that.
That's Kevin, correct?
Yes.
So Kevin Reich is our beloved representative here in our Northeast Arts District. And I had this idea to do this, and I kind of tried to contact, different developers, and it's hard to get to them. So I reached out to Kevin's office and I said, I've got this idea. What do you think? And he said, I think that's a great idea. Let me sniff around and see if I can find a developer that's interested. So this happened because of Kevin Wright.
Terrific. Well, we'll hear directly from Kevin in the next segment. We do want to do a thank you to some of the sponsors for, and this will be for the pop-up, right? That the sponsors are supporting your program, or are these sponsors for the bags that the swag bags come in?
So one of the ACW's philosophies and missions is to make sure that artists are paid for their work, and volunteers in this organization are paid for their work. If you don't pay artists, there aren't going to be any artists. And the reason that volunteer organizations fail is because it's just, give. Mm-hmm. So we provide stipends for everything that people do. Is it work? Is it amount that's appropriate for the hours spent? Probably not, if I'm in any case. But at least they are provided stipends.
Sure.
So what all the people on the bag became $500 members, and they got the logo on this beautiful black canvas swag bag. And that went towards paying all the people working on the project and helping raise the money for the artists, because we didn't have enough to give them $50 per object when we started, and that was our goal. And so those people that did that helped us meet that goal. And they also get invited to my chowder feed this summer for $500 donors. So
and anyone who does donate to Art to Change the World for $500 gets that clam bake, as I understand, right?
That it's a chowder. Yeah.
Chowder.
Yes, I'm from Maine. And I fly the seafood in from Maine to make this fabulous chowder, which was my mom's chowder and was her mom's chowder.
All right. Well, the community lives on. I just want to do a shout out to Northeaster, NEMA, and Huxley as the main sponsors of this. And Stay with us, because we're going to hear about what was the next step after the vision? The vision was to bring community and bring people together. We'll hear from Kevin Reich on his role that he played. So stay with us. We'll be right back after a few short commercials. Good morning. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. And I'm glad you've joined the conversation. So we're talking about the Arts District Palette, where artists and neighbors mix. And our co-producer for the show is the Art to Change the World, ACW. My co-host is Barbara Bridges, who is the director of ACW. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
So we have a guest that you have invited, Kevin Reich, who is the council member for the Northeast for your district.
Yes.
Welcome, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So glad that you joined us. I understand that you grew up in the Northeast area.
I did. It's a fantastic place to have done so. And as people ask me, as someone who's been here for quite some time, you must be overwhelmed with all the changes. And certainly, at a certain level, there have been great changes here in this community, but I've also had a great sense of deep continuation of the spirit of Northeast.
Mm. Tell me about this partnership that's being developed.
Well, this partnership it was incredible when I heard the idea. It goes right to the heart of how community is built, regardless of which entry point. And here the entry point with the artists themselves in an arts district with this incoming new folks, new neighbors were coming in. But from one perspective, it wasn't really the new neighbors we were seeing. We were just seeing big buildings and the threat of gentrification that they represented. And here we had an idea where let's break that down and make it human, and let's see how we can come together through the gift of art. To me, I just thought it was fantastic.
What did you think when Barb brought this idea to you initially? It was sort of an out-of-the-box thinking, isn't it?
Well, that's what you expect when you're around creative people. Something that you hadn't thought of specifically makes so much sense when you hear it and then apply it. I mean, the fundamental insight is deeply human, the connection between exchange. However, the unique spin on it and application of it was quite novel. And when you hear it for the first time, you go, well, of course, it's aha, right?
Yeah. Well, you acted pretty much as the connector that got it to the next level. You know, there's an idea, but then there's the person that's got to hustle. It sounds like you were kind of the hustler that went, why don't we bring the people together? So you needed to bring government, you needed to bring developers. Tell me that process.
Yeah, I think that is, in many ways, the role of the public sector. Sometimes it's sort of reduced down to just sort of the grant or the program. But in my sense of the matter is that the elements are there. What are the connection points? Who can open the various doors? Who knows the intersections that are there, but people haven't found that place. And so I was very happy to play that role. And it's, in some sense, that is the ultimate role, is being the connection point. I know it's antiquated, but sort of the switchboard between the different elements and how they can come together in an opportunistic way.
Well, over the years, I've been really excited seeing the revitalization of the Northeast that's really been driven by the artists, and using industrial buildings that, repurposed in new ways. Tell me, from your perspective, you said earlier, that there's some fear, but you haven't seen that fear. You've kind of looked to the future to begin with the end in mind. Tell me what that future looks like.
Well, I think the future is we continue to grow. We're not in a position to just sort of give up and say, well, it's happened every other place in the nation. It'll probably just happen here. Is to be proactive and to look for opportunities to grow and deepen these connections. I mean, it's one thing to have a series of artists come into a community and find their place, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to actually commingle with community. For some time, the artists were, in the very early phases, kind of doing their own thing, and community was doing its thing, and neighbors were doing their thing, and businesses were doing their thing. At this point, to grow and deepen isn't just to get more spaces, but to make those connection points active and mutually beneficial. So the businesses, the school, the neighborhood associations, and the artists now, more than they were, say, 20 years ago, are really working together in overt, intentional ways. And to me, that speaks to the strength of the future.
There's a legitimization, it feels like, of the artist's role, and not just tangential. They become more of a central role by the way that this is being developed and created.
Absolutely. Just that the creative spirit itself is where you can get the problem solving you need to take on the challenges of community. There will always be some element of challenge, some internally driven, some external, an economic crisis, etc. But where does that resiliency come from? It comes from the creativity of people. And who generates creativity par excellence? The artist.
Yeah. Well, Barb, in the last segment, I remember you mentioning that you really believe communication is the heart to everything. That's the answer to everything, is you got to find a way to communicate. I know that there was lots of communication around the art world, and that you all have some good community practice about how do you come together with business and artists. You want to share a little bit about that, Kevin?
Yes. Even a really good dynamic event like Art World, nationally recognized, tens of thousands of people participating, but there can be sort of, okay, wait a minute, restaurants and bars and brew pubs are doing their thing, we're doing our thing. They seem to be, really doing well with their events. Maybe our sales are flat. What's going on here? Are they hijacking our good thing? And so straightforward conversations need to be had to say, hey, wait a minute. We're all in this together. Let's work together and do it intentionally. And we had conversations about street closings and where art gets placed and how events are branded. And we worked through those issues. There was some tension, but now I think there's greater synergy and mutual benefit.
Well, and I think also you start to get a muscle memory of how problems can be solved through communication, how they can be talked through and new perspectives gained, and opportunity for growth. I keep hearing you say growth, and I think that's sort of the heart of this. How can everyone grow? How can everyone feel like they belong? How can everyone have the pie be bigger instead of looking at scarcity where there's just so much of the pie? Why not grow the pie?
Absolutely, and to see the deep connections. For me, I don't think of Northeast just as an arts district. I think it certainly is that, and it's one of the biggest in the country. But it's also a place that has a tradition of makers. It's the predominantly industrial part of the city. It still has active remnant of that sort of industrial past. But it also has businesses where a new generation of makers have come forth. Obviously, the brewers and distillers are well known, but there's all other kinds of companies that come in, and these people make stuff, be it furniture, widgets, good brew. I mean, they're using their hands, they're making things, as the artists are. And then also, you can go into a restaurant, and the owner, he might be an artist himself, his staff might be part-time there, and musicians at another time of the day. And so there's this continuity of makers and activity that people can feel a part of. And because we have such a concentration of it here and a mutual respect that's generated amongst the makers, that's the spirit of Northeast, a place where things are made, including community.
Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your perspective. And as I said, I want to track how this keeps going. So it is an exciting idea and one that holds a lot of promise. So thank you for all that you've done to support that.
My pleasure, and thanks for this interview.
And Barbara, before we go, I want to make sure that you give us the website for folks to go to.
Yes, I want to thank Kevin, first of all, for helping make this possible. And when you said the phrase touchstone for people, Kevin, when we were meeting initially, I loved that so much that I made it the URL for the project, and it's still there if you'll notice. So, I mean, and that's really exemplifies what we're trying to do here. So, arttochangetheworld.org, pretty easy to find us.
And do they just, when they get there, is there a place to jump to look at the artist palette work?
Right there on the landing page, they can see it clearly. It's one of our 3 big projects we're working on. So Arts District Palette. When they go, it's right there. Just hit the hot link and you'll get all the up-to-the-minute details.
Terrific. And in our next segment, we're going to be hosting Allison Price, who is an artist and a gallery owner in the Northeast area, and find out about her participation with this program and the art that she does in the Northeast area. So stay with us. It's going to be a great show and a great next segment. We'll be looking forward to having you join us. Good morning. Welcome back to Connections Radio Show. I'm Lori Fitz, your host for this show, and my co-host is Barbara Bridges. She's the director of Art to Change the World, which is also our co-producer today. And we're talking about the Arts District Palette, where artists and neighbors mix. And I have to tell you, Barb, I love that image of a palette that has lovely colors, but they're all kind of messy in some ways. It's the creation part, isn't always, neat and defined. There's, colors that mix and create and come together. And that's what you're trying to do. For audience members that may have just joined us, can you just give us a brief overview of what the vision of the Arts District Palette, where artists and neighbors mix?
Yes, we are partnered with the Huxley Apartments. Rob Miller bought 224 works of art from NEMA and Art to Change the World artists. We're creating welcome bags that are going to be stuffed with objects and coupons from the vendors, from the restaurants, from the service providers in Northeast. And we're having a big pop-up celebration and art fair, basically, on August 8th over at Sociable Cider Works. And I just want to give a shout out while I have the opportunity. You mentioned how you love the title.
Yes.
And I told you previously that Lael McDill came up with that. So I want to make sure that I give a shout out to the project leaders, because these people have worked so hard. And Lael has been in charge of the artists. So that was the call for the art, looking at the art, getting a judging group together. Judy Ostrowski and Lucy Schropner have been working on the canvassing and getting all the coupons. Susan Gainham, Catherine Palmer, Natalie McGuire, and Lynette Black have been working on the pop-up show. And then, of course, Allison Price, who we're going to hear from shortly, has agreed to take point, as we call it, in installing the exhibition. And we're just thrilled because she is a professional and she's going to teach us all about it. And I can't wait to hear what she's going to say shortly.
And we will. But I also want to take this opportunity to do a quick shout out for some of the sponsors that help make it possible for the artist to be paid. And these are all folks that are going to be on the swag bag that the art comes in, as I understand. Mm-hmm. And we've got Sociable Cider Works, Northeast Minneapolis Arts District, Eastside Food Co-op, Holland Neighborhood Association, Michael Venowitz. It was in memory of Diane Loeffler and the 56 Brewing. So big thank you to folks that are investing in art and investing in community and investing in the future. So we so appreciate this new innovative idea. Let's bring everyone together. Let's create a sense of belonging, and let's do it through art. And as Barb mentioned, we have a guest today who's from the Northeast area. She is an artist, and she has an artist gallery. Welcome, Allison Price.
Thank you, Laura. It's exciting to be here.
It is. And I understand that you recently joined and are taking point in creating some gallery exhibition.
Exactly. Barbara approached me not that long ago and asked if I'd be interested in joining their group, and it sounded like a fantastic opportunity. I've been a long-time artist in the Northeast Minneapolis Arts District. I've been a long-time NEMA member and have participated in all the fun functions that happen in Northeast. So I thought, hey, this sounds like another great opportunity to bring the community and the arts together. So I'm so happy to join their organization.
And this is going to be a 2-month exhibit, as I understand it, starting in August?
Correct. It'll be starting August 8th at noon o'clock with the kickoff party that'll be outside as well. And then there'll be the 2-month exhibit inside.
You've lived there most of your life, did you say?
I have lived in the Twin Cities for part of my life. Yes, I'm a transplant from overseas in the East Coast, but I do feel most comfortable in Northeast Minneapolis. It's a great place to create art and to engage the community. And I'm excited for opportunities like this because the 96 square blocks of art that we have in Northeast Minneapolis is a bit of a hidden jewel. I encourage people to check out NEMA, check out the NEMA website, the Northeast Minneapolis Art District website, and Art for Change the World websites, and look and see the caliber and the quality and the quantity of art that's available pretty much in our backyards.
You know, sometimes when people tell me that they feel a sense of belonging at a place, it's because something strikes a deep chord and they sense that connection. Tell me about why this is special to you personally versus being in the East or in the internationally, that something strikes that chord. What is it that makes you feel the sense that you belong and that this is a community that you're a part of?
Well, I am one of the very fortunate artists that has a space in the Northrop King building, which is a 114-year-old former seed warehouse. And it is full of over 350 artists. And that space and the community that's grown within that space is remarkable. People are willing to help you out. And this is high caliber artists who say, hey, I can, help you out and give you a critique on your piece, or hey, I've got a hand truck that you might need to borrow to haul that giant sculpture in. I mean, it runs the whole gamut. And I absolutely love that.
And you also have a studio. Is that part of the Northrop King area, or do you have a separate place for your studio?
The Northrop King building is the Midwest's largest arts complex, and Kathy Krishnan and I have an art gallery with 13 local artists right at the front door of the Northrop King building. So it's a great place to spend a Saturday afternoon if it's rainy or otherwise. We're open noon to 5 today, actually.
And what have you felt in being part of, and I know you've just jumped into this, but what's your hope for this growth in the community? In our last segment, we were talking with Kevin Reek, who, has a real vision. He hopes that all can keep growing and communicating and creating this sense of a maker capital of celebration of being a maker and being in community. What would you like to see in the future? What's your hope and dream for your community as it grows?
I completely agree with Kevin. I think that the pie, as you said also, Lori, the pie is going to continue to grow, and it's going to be a richer, deeper, fuller, more delicious pie because of all of the people that are contributing to it. There isn't the scarcity mentality. We don't need to go there. There is enough pie for everybody, and the more people that are introduced to the arts district, the more that it will become a destination, the more people from around the world and regionally and across the country that will come to visit our arts district to experience the great food, the great libations, the great art, of course, and perhaps even want to move in because there are some really, really cool developments that are going up right in the heart of the arts district.
And what do you see the role in the future for the artist?
Artists, as Barbara has said, have always been the communicators. We communicate problems in our society. We communicate the beauty of our society. We communicate it's such a complex discussion. And the artists are a great way for people to walk into a gallery, walk into a studio, and have a piece or a place or a person that just immediately resonates with them. And they can open their heart, their discussion, and just talk about the art. But also by doing so, they're talking about their own journey and their own paths. And as an artist, that is what I love to hear, is how my work and my co-artist work just resonates with people and just makes us have a more full-bodied conversation and a more full-bodied life.
It feels to me when I hear you say this that that in our journey in life, the artist can be supportive as a navigator, that allows us to question in through images and through concepts that maybe don't even have words, but that have a sensibility that allow us to, explore possibilities. And just the fact that the exploring possibilities is being led by artists who welcome instead of shy away from the development, that you can create partnership and you can create possibility is really a novel and exciting artistic idea.
Yes. And thank you, Barb and her group, for spearheading this project. It's really exciting.
Well, I want to thank you, Allison. And again, if you want to give your website, and your studio is open today. If you want to give us that address, we could do a shout out to our AM 950 listeners to support your art as well.
Thank you, Lori. Our website is tracelecheartgallery.com and also the NorthropKingBuilding.com.
And you're open, you said, today from 12 to 5.
Correct.
All right. Thank you, Allison. And Barb, do you have any parting words for Allison as she leaves our show?
Allison, I'm just so thrilled that you've joined up with us, and that I don't even have to think twice about that part of this project, because I know you've got it.
So thanks, Barb. And thank you so much for joining us, Allison. And Barb, before we go to break, again, if you wouldn't mind giving the website for folks who may have joined us and want to learn more, tell us how they can find out more about the Artist Palette.
Just go to arttochangetheworld.org and click on Artist Palette.
Terrific. And stay with us in our next segment. We're going to have one of the sponsors of this great program be joining us. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a few short minutes. Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. And we have had a wonderful conversation today about the Arts District Palette, where artists and neighbors mix. This is co-produced by the Art to Change the World, ACW. And I've had Barbara Bridges as my co-host, and she is the director of ACW. Barbara, what a great show.
I've really enjoyed it. I love seeing the people that are working on the project express their viewpoints. It's exciting to me. I mean, we've been so isolated, and this is an opportunity for us to have the conversation with everybody.
Well, I'm glad that we're able to make the connections on Connections Radio Show.
There you go.
That always makes me happy. Now, I also want to make sure that we do some thank yous, and we have not only, I had mentioned a sponsor, but he's also a ceramicist and a musician who is joining us in this last segment. Marco will be joining us in just a minute, but I just want to make sure I do my last set of thank yous. And I want to thank Solar Arts, KFAI-FM, thanks guys, Central Avenue Liquor, and Mojo's Coffee. And speaking of Mojo's Coffee, do you want to introduce our guest?
Yes, Marco is definitely an institution in the neighborhood here in Northeast. He runs Mojo's Coffee, which is an art gallery, amazing coffee shop, and wonderful sandwiches. And we have the big treat of having his studio right in the corner so we can see him create his most amazing clay pieces. He's just so talented.
Welcome, Marco.
Good morning.
We're glad you're here today.
Can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
It's the marvel of modern communication. You know, I'm in Wichita, Kansas, as we speak. So
well, terrific. Well, you're making the connection to the Twin Cities via the Wichita lane. How's that?
Yeah. Well, I've been listening along as the program has unfolded. It's been enjoyable.
Well, Martha, share with us your hopes. We've been talking about, how community can be built and how you're seeing how the artists who are making gifts, essentially, for the new community members when they move in. How do you see this being able to continue to create community between the developers, the new neighbors, and the artists, and even strengthening the community that you have?
Well, it goes to kind of the core of my personal philosophy about art and the importance, the necessity of art, the function of art, and the art of function, as we have on our logo at Mojo Coffee Gallery. I'm a former educator. I taught for 20 years. I did a midlife career change wherein I had been an illustrator, graphic designer, and editorial cartoonist, but I wanted to go back and finish my BFA and MFA, and in so doing, that's how I discovered clay. And so I had a 20-year career as a college art educator.
Wow!
And one of the things that became central to my, for lack of a better word, I suppose, mission, is that I was actually the only, professor I knew that was always looking forward to being able to teach intro to art classes. Most faculty try to avoid those.
It can be a challenge, I will admit. Some of those entry classes can be hard to cover the waterfront.
Well, I looked at it as an opportunity, in that most of those students were going to be non-majors. And I had kind of two basic goals and these translate going forward into my personal philosophy of art, my personal philosophy of living with art and making art and promoting art and all that. But I had two goals, the first of which was to convince my non-major students that art is important. It's relevant, it's essential. It's not something to be dismissed when times are tough and economic decisions are being made. And second, I wanted to teach them a quick, useful, easy formula, as it were, to look at art and to engage in thoughtful art criticism or critical thinking, so that they wouldn't say, "Oh, I like that," or "That sucks," or "That's interesting," which to me as an artist is always the kiss of death.
The distancing of interest.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, knowing that. I mean, they don't know what to think about.
Right.
Frankly, and
it's sort of a Minnesota phrase of like, an exit is soon to come after that.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's not too bad, whatever that means.
Right.
So,
but I hear what you're saying in terms of, if you can bring people together to understand the function of art in a greater way, you're really looking at the art of living at that point.
Sure.
And if you can create that sense of art of living, whether that's in your coffee shop or with an artist or with a neighbor that's just moved in, that's something that's very novel and very important in building community.
Well, the thing about art, in that, we have to look at what are the functions of art. Uh-huh. And I have a hard time imagining living in a space with just completely bare walls. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate the comments made earlier about, acquiring a piece of art. And, good art never wears out.
No.
It just becomes an old friend.
Yes.
And oftentimes it reveals itself to you in new ways.
It does. It changes.
And it's living with art. We've done it all through the human experience. A great deal of what we know about ourselves as humans living in community is learned through the art that remains.
And Marco, I wish I had a whole hour that I could share and talk about. I'm coming down to my last minute, so I want to make sure that Barb can share about, how people can learn more and a quick recap of it. But Marco, thank you for your support of the work that's being done with the Artist Palette and the art that you're doing, and the conversations that you're having that help build that sense of connection and really digging deep into what does it mean to have art and that functionality in your life that
sure.
creates more meaning. So Barb, tell me more. We're wrapping it up.
Yeah, I love hearing what Marco had to say.
Yes.
And he's also a musician who is going to appear at the August 8th pop-up event. So multi-talented member of ACW. So you can join us by going to arttochangetheworld.org. And we've been yucking up our lobster chowder. But you can join Art to Change the World for $50. And we have 400 members. Only 200 of them are artists. So scientists, educators. If you think art can change the world, then join us.
And I have joined, and I love Art to Change the World, and I hope you will too. Thanks for joining us today here on Connections Radio Show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.